I'm ripping vets right now. One thing I'm gonna what'll be kind of cool. I'm gonna commit to you, Arturo, and it's cool that Annalyn's on this too as well. I'm gonna be ripping vets for the next month, and I'm gonna put up some numbers and I'll report back just to people say that the vet category is like oversaturated. I would beg to differ, and we're gonna prove we're gonna show you. So
Let's go. So we're gonna do the vets deal, and this would be a great training.
yeah. Another thing too, Arturo and anybody else that's out there talking to agents, um, especially now and in general, this is the busiest time of the year for finance, just in general. Coming off summer, blah, 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 blah. People have what's called like a required minimum distribution out of their IRAs. Those are retired people. We sell to a lot of retired people. People are checking finance just for tax reasons. You got Medicare, blah, 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 blah. So coming into the rest of this year is the time to put your foot on the gas, although we do have some holidays and leading into next year. Um, Historically, this is the time if you were to ever throw fuel on fire is now for the next 3, 4 months. So, um,
That's
combine
awesome.
yeah, combine that with an election year. People are worried no matter what. It doesn't matter what side of the spectrum you're on. Um, People are paying more attention more than ever, and whoever gets in office, they think their life is doomed. Like it doesn't matter. Blah 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 blah. So we can solve your doomed life by blessing your family with some life insurance once the world ends for you after the next election and whatever. So
Yeah, that's awesome, dude, for sure. Great insight, brother.
cool, cool man.
Well, yeah, man, let's just hop right into it. Let's kind of start with what's your approach to how you're approaching the calls, mindset, and then we could just kind of roll into kind of how you run the calls. We just do a good old fashioned training.
Yeah. So, just simple. I mean, simplicity is key. I don't need to overcomplicate anything. If they pick up the phone, they're interested in life insurance. So that's the main thing, and it's my job to just hold them accountable. They filled out the information. I'm just calling them and really just leading them along the way.
Yeah, and so are you, all of the small talk and like all of that stuff, like what's kind of your frame? Are you going in the friend angle? Are you going in as the the doctor angle? Like what's kind of how are you showing up for the calls to the vets?
Yeah, I'm trying to like not be as same as everybody else. So I'm not really the friend, especially up front. I'm not asking you how you're doing today. If you're asking people how they're doing today in the first, couple seconds, in my opinion, you're shooting yourself in the foot because nobody actually cares. Um, and people just give their default answer like good, like, or they could say I'm terrible, like I'm doing this is a really bad day, Arturo, and then you just shot yourself in the foot for sure, right? So a little bit more of like a doctor approach, I would say. He's got some visitors.
Yeah, I'm on in town. Cool. So how I mean, let's just walk through it. Just go ahead and just hit me with it. We'll just kind of just ring me up.
Yeah, ring ring.
Hello?
Hi, Arturo.
Who is this?
Hey, this is Dempsey. Just had a couple seconds to get back to you here before my next appointment. I'm just licensed with the state of Ohio. I received that request you put in about possibly looking at life insurance. Were you looking for anything specific or just wanting to go over your options?
What is this about?
Yeah, this is about the life insurance for veterans here. You had filled out a request. It could have been a little bit a while ago. We're still kind of getting caught up on things. Um, just this year, we're looking about some options for basically for your funeral and final expenses. Does that ring a bell?
Oh yeah, yeah. I filled out a couple of those things online. Yeah, people been calling me left and right, man.
Shoot, man, that's probably pretty annoying, isn't it?
Yeah, you just don't know who to trust sometimes. And everybody's calling, trying to get your money. I just trying to see what's out there, but people just keep calling, so
For
I gotta
sure.
stop answering.
No, no, man, I totally get it. Thank God you actually got connected with me. Sounds like you're just getting rang up by a bunch of sales reps. Probably just trying to push some products down your face here. I'm actually what's called a medical underwriter for the state. Just means I got access to just about everybody out there, so we can just I can do all the shopping for you, basically tailor something for your family. I know you mentioned you kind of sound like you had talked to a couple of people already. Did you end up finding something, or what even happened?
Yeah, so I think talked to one person, and one guy just talked the whole time, so I just hung up the phone.
Mhm.
And I just usually get that feeling sometime where it's just like it just wasn't the right time and I wasn't feeling the person. So didn't go through with nothing. But um, I saw an ad about the V doesn't cover everything or whatnot. I
Mhm.
thought it did, and just want to make sure that I got a little bit to cover the final expenses. Not too much, but just enough to kind of do that.
Yeah.
And see if it's affordable.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly why I'm calling. Kind of figured that was the case here, so I can just kind of update the system on our end and make sure to find something affordable. You did mention that. Did anybody even give you any numbers or anything yet, or you didn't even get that far?
Um, no, I didn't really get any numbers. I didn't really get that far.
Okay, gotcha. Well, I should actually probably ask Arturo. Were you looking to cover funeral and final expenses, or were you looking to leave more to like pay off your home and any credit cards or just any debt that your family might have?
Maybe just enough to cover the expenses and probably cover off the house. I mean, we've been living here since the late 80s, so it ain't that much left on it, maybe only about 50,000, but
Mhm.
you know, just want to make sure everything's good at this time.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Everything does kind of vary quite a bit. So, I mean, if it would help, I can go over some things to just really narrow it down and see what you might qualify for. And then we can go over all the options and you can tell me if anything might work. Would that help you?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Let's pause right there. Um, you said a lot of things that I think a lot of new people will kind of get tripped up on, or they just might miss in general. Um, at the beginning, you didn't know who I was, which is fine. So it's okay to say life insurance. I say possible life insurance options. People will get kind of a little bit combative and say, "Yeah, you filled out this request." Like I'm guilty of that in the past. Like, no, like this is Arturo. You're born January 1st, 1980, right? And they're like, "Yeah," but like I don't even know who you are, right? So just possible options makes people feel really relaxed. I got that from Jeremy Miner, and it's worked. That if you can't get through the intro, we can't even get down the conversation from there. Um,
So most people sometimes can make the mistake of just because they got the information and assuming that justifies just bulldozing through the initial piece. But if you say possible, it kind of like makes it to where it's like an option of like it's like my choice, right? Like possibly we could see if this okay, that makes sense because like if you did call me like that, it's like, oh, well, like even if I did, you know what I mean? It's
yeah,
like, well, now we're kind of at this standoff. It's like, so we're doing this?
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. It's very hands off, and it kind of lets the guard down. And then you mentioned about people talking to you or calling you a bunch. So I already know that you're annoyed, okay? Because I would be annoyed. So that's why I'll ask, man, have you been getting a bunch of calls? Yeah, yes, I have. And they've been talking a bunch and blah, blah, blah. Well, thank God you got connected with me. I can solve that for you. Okay, cool. What do you have in store for me? Right? All that's happening pretty quick, but you got to have these objections and things kind of unlocking these loops. I can talk you in a loop on that forever if I wanted to, right? If you're being combative, but eventually you're going to break through. Um, and then you've had other interactions with agents. So I need to figure out if it was good or bad. You mentioned affordability up front. So like, man, were they like just showing you like some crazy options, or did you even get into quotes? Did you get that far? No, you didn't. Okay, cool. So now we're at the point where I figured out final expenses. I know you already talked to quite a few people. You maybe are also procrastinating a little bit on it, or maybe you just had a bad experience with an agent. You said that he talked a lot and really didn't let you say anything. So you probably had a bad experience. So I already know all this, and we're 2 minutes into the conversation. Okay. So I'm going to continue to frame the rest of the conversation knowing that in mind. Is that making sense?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. We can pick right back up. So from here, I said, would that help you? Like I can show you some options. Would that help you? You said yes. Now we just roll straight into underwriting. And in my opinion, this is where the sale is made because I need you to come to the realization that you're probably not as healthy and as great as you think you are. Because a lot of the veterans and especially final expense, they're a little bit older. They've had some stuff happen to them. I need you to come to that realization on your own through me talking to you through medical questions.
Mm.
Do you want me to run through how I do the medical questions?
Yeah, just run through it. I'm not going to say much else.
Yeah.
Just let you kind of run through that because
Yep.
I think this is where most people make the mistake where they just have the script. But the truth is that the people who excel in this isn't the people who read off a script, is the people who understand the medical underwriting. Is that correct?
Correct. And then what we'll do right after the medical underwriting is where I'm going to eliminate every single objection. And then if something comes up, I can loop. By looping, I mean I can paint you in a corner to get you to say yes to move the conversation forward. Okay.
Gotcha.
But for the underwriting, a lot of people will just go down the list of things. I make it a conversation. Like, all right, Arturo. So, man, the companies they're just going to ask. I know you may have already put most of this online, and you know how insurance is, man. They just make me go through the boring questions. I got your birthday here as January 1st, 1980. Is that right? Cool. Um, Now, are you over there chain smoking on me? I like to try to make them laugh just a little bit. Nothing too crazy. Um, No. Okay. Do you use tobacco of any kind? No. Okay. So you don't plan on starting this weekend, do you? No. Ha ha ha. LOL. Okay. Um, they'll ask your height and weight. Okay. So about how tall are you? If they give me 5'11" or 6 foot or whatever, I'm like, so you really 5'11" or what is it? And I'll make some jokes a little bit like that. Okay, in ballpark, how much do you weigh roughly? And we'll get that. And then, so what most of the carriers do for qualification purposes is they'll actually pull your medical records and they make their decision that way. So, just a little bit about the medical history. Have you had any recent hospitalization or surgeries in the last, call it 3 to 5 years? No. Okay. Have you stopped taking any medications in the last 5 years because you don't need it anymore? That one's very important because if they've stopped taking 4 or 5 high blood pressure meds, you're going to want to put that in some notes because it's still going to be on the record. Okay.
Mm.
Have we had anything ever happen with our heart? Any stents, any circulatory surgeries, any blood clots? How are our lungs working these days? Any asthma, any COPD? Have you ever been prescribed an inhaler? Is our blood flowing well? Got any high blood meds? Any seizures? And by the way, this can take a long time for people that are on medications.
Okay, so let's slow down.
Mhm.
You're saying that it can take some time because most people are just trying to rip through the application and then run into snags.
Mhm.
All right. And
So,
so you don't sound like you're going that fast.
yeah. So, like for instance, okay. So, have you had anything with a heart? Um, no, actually, you know what? I did have a stroke back in 2015. Okay. So, with that stroke, did you have to have any stents? No stints, but I did have surgery. Okay. So did they put you on any meds after that? Yeah, I'm on 3 meds. Okay. What are the names of those? And then I'll get the names and I'm using insurance toolkits to plug it in. So a lot of these people, yes, they're going to have high blood pressure. Okay. So how many meds you take? You take just one? Okay. Just out of curiosity, when you were going through the high blood pressure stuff, did they test different medications or has it always been this one? Well, I've had 3 different ones and this, that, and the other. Okay, do you know the names of those threes? Because that's going to be important because Arturo, that's going to show up on your medical history. I need to be able to communicate with the insurance carriers that you don't take these anymore because if it comes up that you have these and they think you're taking them, you're actually not going to be able to qualify for insurance in general. Okay. So I need to make sure that I'm covering all our bases here. So that's what I'll do for literally every question. Okay. Did that answer your question?
Yes, that's incredible.
Okay. Um, all righty. So we got through that. Any history of cancer? If yes, what kind? When was the treatment date? Did it spread to the any parts of the body? Are you in remission now? Hopefully you're okay. You know, when was the last treatment date? Stuff like that. Any history of diabetes? Have you ever been pre-diabetic? If you are you taking insulin? Or do you just take like any pills? What was your A1C? Have you had any complications with it? How's your blood sugar? How's your cholesterol? Has the dosage changed at all? Okay. How are kidneys doing, man? You kidneys good? You're not drinking too much on the weekends, are those college days aren't catching up with you, are they? No? Okay. Cool, man. What about the liver? Everything good over there? Cool. Okay. Are you in like a wheelchair? Any like electric scooter to get around, anything like that? What's going on? Do you need any help with like daily living activities, going to the bathroom, um, changing, anything like that? Sleep apnea, arthritis, dementia, memory loss, and any surgeries or any pending surgeries coming up. So that's the entire medical history I'll go through. And it's just a conversation with the client. Okay. Because they're going to tell you that they're healthy, and then you're going to find that they're on 7 medications. That happens all the time. Um, so if you make it a conversation as opposed to going heart attack, stroke, cancer, nope. Diabetes, neuropathy, nope. COPD, like I just found that they open up more, in my opinion. Is that making sense?
Yes.
Okay. And then hey man, Arturo, dude, like man, I like cars. I don't know if you like cars or not, but like you got any crazy like speeding tickets, got any DUIs on me, any hit and runs on me? And they'll laugh and say no, right? Like my buddy literally just had a guy that he was like, "Whoa, my driver's license hasn't been renewed for 20 years. I got caught selling meth." And literally just last week, and he called me to tell me about that. So we laugh about it, and you can make it a joke, but it's a real thing, absolutely a real thing. Um, and you'll get some crazy ones, man. You'll get some crazy ones. So you get through that. Now, this will really set the tone of what's about to come next. Okay. Because you could have told me that you were healthy. Pretty much everybody does. And now I've discovered 3 or 4 medications that you're taking. And maybe you're a little bit overweight and this, that, and the other. Okay. So I got that taken care of. All right. Now I'm going to get real curious. I'm about to get real emotional with the client. You got to be careful because you could come off as sounding like a jerk when you ask these questions. But when you start to have a little bit of decent tonality and getting them to open up, you will objections, you just won't have as many objections when it comes to pricing and stuff like that. Okay. So, so Arturo, man, did just out of curiosity, man, did something happen recently or what had you looking for life insurance? Right. And they're going to tell you whatever. Okay. Now it sounds like we talked at the beginning that you were just kind of shopping around and stuff, but it sounds like you don't have any life insurance now. Like, but do you have any like savings or stocks or got any, money under the mattress or, if something happens to you, like what would be there to cover, funeral and final expenses or that $50,000 mortgage or the credit card bills, whatever it is? What would be there to kind of cover all of that? And also, who would be the person responsible to like go in and, you know, have to actually meet and talk to the funeral director and plan to pay everything, right? Then I'll make them answer that question. For a lot of dudes, is their wife. Okay. Okay, so has such and such, like, have they done that before? Or have you done it yet? Or planned at all? And they will literally, some people will just say, dude, no, I haven't. I just haven't. Or some people will say, yeah, like, you know what, I have, and that's what prompted me to look into this. Now we're starting to get off of any sort of numbers, any product type, anything. Because if they're on a tight budget and they'll let you know, you said 50,000 at the first part of the conversation, you're probably not going to be able to afford 50,000 for whole life. Okay. So I'm now trying to get you to open up through just probing a certain amount of questions. So this is the situation questions is what they say. If they say, hey, you know what? I'm not actually sure who would have to pay for everything. wow, okay. Like if it's maybe the family, like have they saved up for something unexpected like this, or would they just end up being forced to make payments over the next few years or something like that, right? And I'm going to make them answer that question. Well, they'll probably have to, I don't know, come out of pocket for it or whatever. Like, oh, okay, geez, man. Well, hopefully we can get you covered, okay? And then we'll move on, okay? If they have coverage or if they don't have coverage, like it doesn't really matter. But just a little tidbit here: if they say they have coverage already, like Arturo, what makes you feel like that policy you have is not enough? Okay, because what a lot of people do, rookies, what they'll do is they will try to replace the policy, like, oh, I can undercut that, or oh, I can do this, that, and the other. But I've found that I can probably spend your money for you and I can add on to that policy. Because if you got a policy 10 years ago, you're probably not beating that rate, right? So I need to somehow get around that. And my way to get around that is what makes you feel like that's not enough.
So instead of trying to dig yourself and paint yourself into a corner, saying, "Oh, well, let me see what you got. We might be able to find you something cheaper." And then when they pull out the policy, they were
Yep.
younger and healthier,
Yep.
then you don't have anywhere else to go.
Especially with veterans, man. They may, because if they're 100% disabled, they're going to have a policy most likely that's just paid for by the government. Okay. So you're not going to be at a free policy. Okay. It's probably going to be $10,000 that they don't got to pay for. So, man, what makes you feel like that's not enough? Well, man, I just had a funeral and it cost us $15,000. You never know what the reason will be. And by the way, this is the exact order that I go in my script. I'm not bouncing around or anything. I literally go in this exact order. Okay. And I have just like cues on my script to prompt me for questions. Um, Now, whatever they say, when I say what makes you feel like that's not enough, or who's leaving who's gonna handle the stuff for the funeral, who's gonna talk to anybody, blah 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 blah. No matter what they say, if it's gonna be their wife, that's gonna be the beneficiary. Arturo. I mean, I see this a lot, and man, your wife, they're lucky to have a husband like you and a father like you that's selfless enough to just take that burden off of them so they don't have to go through all that stress trying to figure all that out unexpectedly. And man, I talk to a lot of people, and you know, some people they just don't mind putting that stress and responsibility on their family and kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, yeah. And can I ask, I mean, how come this is so important to you now? Right? I've asked that question very similarly before already. What got you started to look into it? But now we're getting to what's so important to you now. Like, why is this so important to you now? Okay. And then I will just make them basically answer that. Like, well, like life's happening, and they'll give a vague answer, like life, whatever it is, like, okay, sounds like you got a reason for saying that. Well, yeah, I was actually, you know what? My cousin died in a car accident, and we were best friends, right? Mm, understood, man. You guys were close. Yeah, yeah, we were pretty close. Geez, man. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, man. Hopefully you're bouncing back okay. It makes sense. So this whole entire thing is designed for just emotions to open up. Okay. Um, and then basically I'll start to roll into like some different, qualifying questions and stuff like that. You know, like this sounds like this is important to you, and it's important to have some financial protection for the family. And I'm sure you would agree having something in place is probably better than nothing. Is that right? I've never had somebody say no to that question. Okay. So we've talked about your medical history. I know how messed up you are. I got you. You said you were first shopping around. Now we've drilled down to you want to take care of the family. We know your wife's going to be the beneficiary. I've gotten you to open up about why you started looking into this, and I've gotten you to explain to me why it's important to you to do something now. Okay. Now I've got you to agree that having at least something in place is going to be better than nothing. All right. And then from there, I really just transition into policy and numbers and stuff like that. This whole conversation takes like 45 minutes to get to this point.
What
So
about like,
taking you,
yeah.
go ahead,
Oh,
Jack.
sorry. Yeah. No, I was gonna say like, when you're hitting resistance, right? Because I'm sure, not everyone's, open to a conversation, right? Like, a lot of vets think that this should be free, right? Hey, I'm a veteran. Um, you know, yeah, I got my stuff paid for. I'm just, seeing what's out there. I'm doing some shopping, right? Oh, or like the guys like, oh, the what you got guys, the shoppers, right? That aren't really going to buy
Yeah.
anything. What do you typically do in that situation?
Yeah, for people like that, because typically you're gonna get that just straight up front. Okay, like, no, I just want numbers. There's multiple ways to go about it. Man, Jack, I appreciate you. Finally, somebody just wants to get back down to it, man.
Yeah, brass tacks. Yeah.
Yeah, let me just get you those numbers, dude. Real quick, just so I can get you the most accurate stuff, man. Are you a smoker or a non-smoker? So I will start to get to underwriting. If they keep giving me pushback, and I'll say, Jack, let me just take a step back as a professional. And I know you are a professional as well. I'm sure you could appreciate me doing my due diligence and getting you the exact numbers that are going to mean something to you. Then just by throwing like numbers or a dart on the dartboard, or just taking a shot at the dark and not actually giving you accurate info. I'm sure you could appreciate that. If they say no to that, they probably are just a shopper and
Right.
just want to talk to people and say, all right, man, well, look, Jack, I want to respect your time. I'm not the quote guy. I'm the guy that will just get people covered. I have access to about 30 different A-rated companies. Most of my clients actually just appreciate the fact that I do the shopping for them. But if you want to, and it's fine by me, I can give you the names and numbers of all 30 companies, and you can call them all yourself and get a quote, and then figure out where you want to go from there. So kind of which way do you want to go? And then
Nice. Yeah. So you're giving them some kickback for sure. Just like, hey, dude.
yeah. I mean, I'm not afraid to burn a lead. I mean,
Right.
I'm not like, especially when we're working with you guys, like I have a ton of leads, right? So I got people to call. But yeah, if you're giving pushback up front and I try to overcome it a couple of times, like, hey man, that's fine. I'm not the quote guy, just being
Right.
honest, right? And that just comes with time and people that don't have commission breath.
Right.
Um, but I don't run into that as often as you would think. Um,
Nice.
so it'd be a lot different. But I think the point for that, for people that get resistance right off the rip, is you kind of got to skip any sort of like rapport building and stuff like that. You kind of got to try to dive into some underwriting, and you can kind of disguise that like, hey, dude, finally somebody wants to get right to the numbers, man. That makes my job a lot easier. Just real quick, were you a smoker or non-smoker? And just get them that way. But there's people that no matter what you do, no matter what you say, they just won't buy insurance. I'll
Right.
just, dude, I got $1 million for you for $1 a month.
Right. Nah, I
And
need to
they're
think
gonna-
about it. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. Um, I think adopting the Jeremy Minor frame, I'm in some of his stuff. It's made it more of a conversation and a logical flow of this is just what we're doing, right? And it's just constantly taking sales resistance down from the client. And that way, I don't really, if you get through the entire script, you're not going to get a ton of objections. If you do, they're coming as clarifying questions. So, just from giving them like, hey man, based on what you told me, it sounds like what we're doing here would work for you. I got this company, these numbers, blah, 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 and they're gonna pick something.
Right.
Okay. Um, and I can even go into the script part of that of how I go about numbers if you want. Um, but the sale's pretty much done in the first half of that conversation. But they may ask like, so like you need my social? Like, yeah, actually the insurance carrier does. Um, that's a phenomenal green drink you got there.
No, man, it's from the wife over here. She's
Yeah, there
awesome.
you go. A little margarita in the middle of the day.
I wish. Wouldn't be the
Yeah,
first
yeah,
time.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, but Yeah, they're gonna ask questions like, why do you need my social? Like, hey, like I mentioned before, like this is just simplified issue insurance. So they're not gonna send anybody out to take your blood, make you do a urine test, anything like that. They're actually going to check the medical information bureau for us and make sure that I'm putting in all accurate information and there's no stone left unturned. Okay. So what is your social? So stuff like that on there. But that's like as not fancy. It's nothing revolutionary. If you just keep it simple and don't get flustered, like you're going to close deals. Um, that's kind of how I go about it. I mean, I can if you want to go into how I present numbers and
Yeah,
quote and do a report on that.
yeah, that'd be great.
But
Yeah, let's rock it out, man. Let's give people all the
Let's
value so there's no
let's
yeah,
yeah,
stone
let's get
unturned. They're
dirty
like, all
here.
right.
Yeah.
for sure, for sure. But yeah, once I started introducing the like emotional questions and just getting them to really live out what it would be like if they died and their family has to plan the funeral, reality sets in for a lot of people. Um, but cool. So yeah, before I'll transition, my transition literally is like this. All right, Arturo, man, I appreciate it, man. That's kind of what I needed to know. Um, it sounds like what we're doing here kind of would work for you. Because you said that, it's important to you to make sure we're covering, the funeral and final expenses, and you don't want your wife to really just get blindsided when that day comes. Um, Let me kind of go over a couple of numbers. I got it narrowed down to a couple of companies that I think is going to make sense for you. Do you have something to write with real quick? Always get them to get a pen and paper. Okay. Um, First thing here is just the boring stuff. State requires me to make sure you got all my info. So my name is Dempsey Mogg, and I'll spell it out for them. My national producer number here, Arturo. This is basically like my business ID or like my business social security number. So that's kind of how you look me up on a government website and verify me. And by the way, if you want to do that right now, we can. It takes 30 seconds. But my number is 206-76748. And then I'll have them repeat it back to me, make sure they're writing it down. Okay. So Arturo, basically what we're going to be looking into is what's going to be called a whole life product. Okay. I'm not sure how much you know about insurance, but do you know like the difference between whole life and term life? Um, yeah, most people will say no, like that's totally fine. Given your age, I know we're 68 years old. Um, it stands for terminate, so that just means it's going to go away eventually, and it makes sense for those people who are 30s, 40s. They just got a mortgage, and then get a little bit bang for your buck, but it's going to go away. Okay. Well, we're going to look into what is called whole life, and it's exactly what it means. It's good for your whole life, Arturo. Doesn't matter how, when, or where you die, it's going to pay out to the family. Okay. Um, it's also going to build what's called a cash value for you. So this sounds fancy. Is it going to make you rich? No. Is it nice to have 3, 4, 5 years down the line to maybe pull out, a couple $100,000 here and there? Sure. Okay. It's also going to have what's called level premiums. Make sure you write that down. Now, as a veteran, I know you mentioned you had their term insurance, and that price kept doubling up on you every couple of years. You're never going to have to deal with that here. Once we get you locked in, the monthly payments are going to stay the same, and the face amount's never going to change. You're never going to have to worry about that. And then this policy will come with what's called living benefits. Are you familiar with living benefits? Most people say no. Like that's totally fine. So basically, what will happen is, God forbid, you have something critical, something chronic, like you have cancer, you get a stroke, a heart attack, something that puts you in the hospital for a little bit. You'll actually get access to um, pretty much all of the face amount, if not all of it, to where you can use that for medical bills. You can use it to keep your mortgage payment. You can pay your car bills. Or between you and me, man, if you and the wife want to go on a little vacation out to Myrtle Beach, sip a couple margaritas, that's fine with me. But the point is you're gonna get it tax free. Okay. Um, and I do say that. I literally say that verbatim every single time. Um, and then I present 3 options. Funeral final expenses is pretty simple. it's going to be probably between 10 to 15,000 in coverage. So I'll typically, if I know that they're tight on budget, by the way, keep in mind I never brought up price for them or their budget. Most of these people, they will tell you if they're on Social Security or not. um, it's a lot easier for me to kind of work my way into a final expense policy without necessarily diving into the numbers so much. If it's mortgage protection, it's different, but for this is totally fine. Typically, it's going to be less than $100 a month. Okay. Um, and the reason why behind that is if they're on a fixed income, I don't necessarily need to remind, especially a guy, how much money he doesn't have. So we'll kind of dive into that. And then they'll pick an option like, 15,000 is 140 bucks a month, 10,000 is $101 a month, and 7,000 is $67 a month. Which one do you feel most comfortable leaving behind for your wife? This is where they'll either give you an objection or not. Or they'll say, I need to think about it, or whatever. If they say I need to think about it, hey Arturo, totally understand that. I'm just going to be transparent here, man. When most people say that I need to think about it, it really just means that it's probably a little bit too expensive. I can always tailor up a couple of things. Like, is that the case for you? Is it just maybe this would take a little bit of food off the table? Most people will open up from there. Like, okay, and well then, by the way, did you just plan on getting cremated or like want to do a full service? Okay, well, cremation or whatever. Like, okay, well then let's kind of maybe look at like a $5,000 policy. That'll cover the cost of cremation for you. Okay. And kind of go in, you can attack it from that angle, right? But assuming they pick an option, no matter what it is, I'll just say, hey, let's go ahead and circle that option. Make sure you cross out the other two options, and we're going to put in an application. And then we just literally put in an application. From there, if you get through the whole script, you're not really going to have any objections. You're just going to have clarifying questions. And it's that simple. So that's like the flow. I mean, it takes me 45 minutes to an hour because sometimes people will want to talk a little bit more, but I'm not trying to be anybody's friend too much. I've found that if you become their friend, it's a lot easier for them to say no to you or to say that I'll think about it or let me talk to the wife or anything like that. And yeah, from there it's kind of smooth sailing, to be honest with you. Not nothing revolutionary, it's nothing too crazy, just straight up talking to the client and just coming at it from a couple of different angles, get them to think about a couple of things, and people buy an emotion and then they justify with logic.
Right. So let's kind of walk through getting the the payment information, because that's like, I feel like what we were learning before is that people were kind of making it weird. So it was just like an awkward scenario asking people for the personal information, right? Obviously, we don't have to use any, but let's kind of walk through how you're showing up for that piece, because that's the critical piece where people are fumbling on the 1 yard line, right?
Yeah.
Or like a couple people, they kept getting, well, I don't give out my bank. They were getting an objection for the banking information at the end of the call, right?
Yeah.
So you were saying you don't get that much. So let's talk through that, and then we'll just run into that piece of the conversation.
Yeah. It's actually funny because you'll get their date of birth and social like that, and then they'll object on the banking. Yeah, how I start off with it is like, okay, man, looks like we're getting an initial green light on the application. Typically it would actually just cut me off from here. So this is good news. Nothing set in stone yet. But they do got to validate some of the that you have an active and valid United States bank account and that is actually in your name. If this was something that you were going to move forward with, would you use like a business account or like a personal checking or savings? All right. They're always probably going to say savings, or excuse me, checking, personal. Okay. Who do you bank with? Because Mutual of Omaha, they actually partner with a lot of banks. Chase Bank. Okay. Cool. Did you open that up in the state of Ohio? Yep. Like, okay, well, they're actually going to populate a couple of routing numbers for me. You got something I can run this by with you real quick? And what I'm doing is I'm just Googling Chase Bank Ohio routing number. You can Google any bank and their state routing number, and then it'll pop up a couple of them for you. So like you got anything that can like run this by you, like a mobile app or check or anything like that? They'll pull it up. Okay, I have a routing number as blah 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 blah. That's correct. Okay, and then what's the account number associated with that? If you say it weird, it's going to come off weird and they'll get objections. But that's how I ask them, like, oh, what do you need my account number for? Yeah, like this is just tied to you. Just got to make sure that it's in your name. Well, I don't ever want to take out, or I don't give this info out over the phone. No, yeah, totally get that there. I'm just a little bit confused. Was this something like, is it just like a comfortability thing with me? That's fine if it is. And if they say yes, like, okay, can you just pop open Google on your phone and just go ahead and type in Ohio insurance license lookup and then walk them through to see your NPN and stuff like that. Like that's why I gave you that. Or they may say something like, I'm just not comfortable giving that out over the phone. Like, okay, well, Arturo, have you ever like wrote a check before for anything? And they always say yes. But yeah, so that's the account routing and account number there at the bottom. And you're just passing that out. So it's not abnormal to share this information. I'd be much more concerned if you're giving me your credit card information for something like this. But the account and routing, this is just meant to verify that you are who you say you are, and there's no sort of fraud associated with your bank account. There doesn't have to be any money in there. Does that make sense? Um, if they still give pushback on that, um, I'll even drop like it's also called like the United States Patriot Act. This is after 2011. They have to do this. Like it's not like you have car insurance, right? Yeah, like they had to do that for your car insurance and your homeowner's insurance. They just got to validate it to you, man. No big deal. Um, and after that, if they continue to give you pushback, you can only do so much. So you could be like, hey man, like, can I talk to you like a close friend? And they're always gonna say yes. Like, is this something that you're serious about? You know, get them to answer. Um, but once I go through that loop so many times, like I'll do it 3 or 4 times, and then I'm like, okay, well, they also might say, well, why can't you tell me if I'm approved yet or not? I'm like, well, it actually looks like you're about 90% approved. You have a green light right now. The last thing here is just to make sure that you don't have any sort of financial fraud on your name. I mean, do you? Well, no. Like, well, then we're good to go, man. I pretty much submit this, and you got an insurance policy. Um, if they're continuing to give you an objection, I mean, I've never had to push it that far, but if they continue to give it, like, okay, well, Arturo, I'm just gonna, to save both of us here some time. I don't know if it's a comfortability thing with me. If it is, my apologies. But it just sounds like this isn't like a high priority for you right now. And whether it's me or somebody down the street from you or any other person online, this is just what the insurance carriers need. I don't personally need it. The insurance carriers do. But this is just the last step in the process. And then I can get you that pretty much I can get you that policy number and stuff in hand within 24 hours. But if you're not comfortable with it, or if this isn't a high priority for you, which sounds like kind of isn't right now, maybe we can just kind of reconvene at a later time. How do you want to do that? And that's pretty much it. I mean, the main thing is just how you say it and just roll right into it. I think people have apprehension on just being like, okay, this is the routing number, like cool, and the account number associated with that. People just read it off to you. Doesn't work every single time, but you gotta come into it with confidence and just ask, man. Like it's not a big deal. It's actually not a big deal to give out your account and routing. It's much more concerning for credit card information. Like it actually is. So, that's kind of how I go about it. And at the end of the day, some people just aren't going to do it, and you just keep it moving from there. So,
Yeah. Okay, I got another question. So, policy lapsing, right?
Yep.
How do you approach those? Like, you have, and then especially with vets, I've heard this insufficient funds
or
chargeback, some of that. So what do you do there?
Yeah, so I'm actually restructuring how I approach business, and you guys kind of know a little bit about that for sure.
Right.
So chargebacks, man, just assume 20% off the rip's going to charge back. All right. Just that's part of the game, whatever. So any deposit you get, 20% goes into an account. All right. It's not your emergency account, nothing. You can throw it into a money market so you get a little bit of interest, whatever. That's chargeback money. Okay.
Mhm.
The goal is to never touch the chargeback money, but all hell breaks loose. You got the money, outside. So a lot of it's gonna 20% ish. Hopefully it's closer to maybe 10, 15 is gonna fall off. But a lot of that's going to come from Social Security billing. People are on fixed incomes. So certain carriers don't actually have Social Security billing, even though they say it. So it'll happen like a day or two later. They start the process on that day. And so the truth of the matter is there really just isn't any money in the account right now. So there's some carriers out there, well, really only one that I know of right now that has true Social Security billing, which is American Amicable. So that day that you tell them to take it out, fourth Wednesday of every month, that's going to come out of the account. Also, other people just call them. Hey, man, what's going on? Some people just aren't going to answer you. Some people do, and I haven't done this yet, but it probably is a good idea, is they have reminders to text them the day before it comes out.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, man, just want to let you know, policy's coming out on the 1st. Just giving you a heads up here, and then everything's in effect. You got any questions for me?
Like a quick, is that like a quick manual text, or is that some like a automation you have built out?
The people that I know of do it automatically. So I've heard good things about that, but chargebacks, don't be scared about chargebacks. Another thing here is I know that in the industry, we talk a lot about contracting with certain carriers. If you're writing 2, 3 carriers for everybody, which you can cover pretty much 90% of your clients with,
Yeah.
you will have enough business to just cover any chargeback that comes up.
Right.
So, you get hit with one, but you have 3 other that are going to go into effect in a couple of weeks. Like, you'll be all right. But yeah, man. I mean, chargebacks, they're going to happen, but you can't let yourself get shit. Like, there's no emergencies in this business, man. Whether you lose all your money, you don't got any money, whatever, you can sell policies, you can help families, you can get stuff on the books, and you can dig yourself out of any hole that you're in. But yeah, that's kind of chargebacks. You could try sending a card after you make a sale just so they got a little something from you. But most of the time it's a billing issue with these fixed income people because they need it to actually come out on the 3rd of the month, and carriers are drafting on the 4th and 5th.
Right.
So
I think we talked about that a few weeks back, where just got kind of know when to draft it.
yeah. So that's kind of the thing, and the clients will typically tell you that, like, hey, I get my Social Security on the 3rd Thursday of each month, whatever.
Right.
But it's like you're just gonna get tried. Like, that's just part of the game, man. Like, if I got sell 10 policies and 8 stay on the book forever, like, I'm probably okay with that. You know what I mean? Another thing other people can consider doing, instead of, like, I get a 9-month advance on commissions, you can make it a 6-month advance. You just don't get as much up front, and you don't have to worry about these huge chargebacks. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I haven't found a foolproof way yet, but definitely just staying in contact, letting the client know, making sure, like, some people just literally won't be able to pay until the 1st of next month. And you just gotta, sometimes you can't always have an effective immediately because it'll charge back. So I mean, that's it. I mean, that's it. I mean, don't overcomplicate it. It doesn't sound sexy. But if you get past the intro, that's the most important thing, and then you can basically run your way up to 30,000 a month. And I'll report back with those numbers as well. That way people can know I'm not lying here. So
yeah, man, that was gold, brother. Thanks so much for sharing that. Absolutely incredible. And there's no reason why we're not going to see you at the top of the leaderboards for going through that very systematic and methodical. You got a straight line process. So definitely don't want to oversaturate this call by just talking a bunch, because I wanted to make this training to be valuable for people that they can watch the recording and consume it, actually take some tidbits from it and go out and close some more deals, and obviously giving you practice at a rep. So when you hop off this call, right, you go and use this and text me saying, dude, I just closed another 3K sale or something like that. So definitely appreciate you hopping on.
Appreciate you guys.
Definitely was valuable. So without further ado, yeah, man, that'll pretty much end in this call. But thanks so much for everything, brother.
Appreciate you guys, dude.
Peace.
Peace.